Hi, welcome back to Real Auto Reports, and this is the real video, the real review, perched up here on top of the 2013 Ram 1500 Tradesman Crew 4x4. We're going to give you the detailed review on this vehicle, so let's jump in this truck and take off and hit the road. Hi, so welcome back. We are in the 2013 Dodge Ram 1500 Tradesman Crew 4x4. So what does all that mean? Well, the Tradesman is the bottom of the line in the model family of the Dodge Ram. Oh wait, and I keep calling it a Dodge Ram. Most of our fans probably know that they stopped calling this a Dodge Ram. So when you look it up, it's ramtrucks.com, and it is the Ram 1500. Yes, it is a Tradesman, and yes, it is a Crew, and it is a 4x4. And what Crew means is that you have this big back seat. So, and it is very big, because the other option is a quad. And the quad is more like what I have on my 2006 Dodge Ram. And back then they did call it a Dodge, and that's what our keys say. So it is a little confusing, but they found that the Ram brand was so strong that it really represented the trucks, and Dodge really represented the cars to consumers. So now you have Ram as its own brand, and it really is the representation of their truck line. Now, some things that I'd like to point out is the amount of room in this back seat. I can sit there, I'm 6 foot, my dad's 6'2", and he can sit behind me while I'm driving, and there is no issue with knee room. There is also the ability to put a 2 foot wide roll of bubble wrap in the back seat in most directions, either sideways 2 feet wide or putting it the rollway round. And we've had double rolls in the back here because we're in the process of moving some stuff for Real Auto Reports. So we've really been able to test this vehicle out. So you get a lot of space with the Crew in this vehicle, and you get 2 box options. So we have the 5 foot 7-inch bed. You can also get a 6 foot 4-inch bed. Now, when you look at the outside of this vehicle, and if you saw our Real First Impressions video, you'll probably notice that this vehicle is a very low-grade model. It has steel wheels, it has the plastic and painted black metal bumpers, and really, you know, it is this gray metallic color, but otherwise it's a pretty understated truck. Now, it does have some nice options like the spray and bed liner. And, well, we have the V6 option in this, which means that it's going to be very similar to the V6 we tested in the Charger, the SXT Plus that we saw earlier here on Real Auto Reports. But it's going to be a slightly different tuning and setup for the truck, but it also has the 8-speed automatic transmission with the select dial here to shift. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about the select dial here in a bit, but there's some other interesting things about this vehicle. So let's start with the price. This vehicle, as tested, this truck, is between $35,000 and $36,000, and that seemed like a lot to me when I first looked at the Moroni sheet. And I think it sounded like a lot because, well, the Charger that we looked at that had pretty much all the options you could get, even with the V6, the SXT, well, it was very well equipped. It had leather and heated and cooled driver's seat and passenger seat, memory seats on the driver's side. It just, go back and watch that review, and that Charger is loaded up and was about $37,000. So here we are in really a lower grade truck, but it is the bigger 4-door cab, and but the short box, and a V6, which you actually pay a $500 upcharge to go to a V6 engine. At least that's how it's listed on the option sheet. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Some other things I'd like to point out, kind of like the Dodge Durango, and it didn't really hit me as much in the Durango, but it hits me more in this. This is a real key. Well, it's a big plastic key, actually. And what I thought was interesting is that the press fleet gave me, the keys the way they come from Ram, and it's got this real key next to it, but you can't use this real key to start the vehicle. At least I didn't figure out a way to do it, because this big plastic key is actually what you stick in and turn in the ignition. So there's no keyless entry in this line of the truck. But you do have satellite radio, and it's not a color screen, but it is a digital screen. So it does tell you what's playing and by who. It does have the media ports, which are here in the center console. So you have your USB, you have a power port in here, and you have an aux port, which I have to say, from the 2006 model that I have in my family, we have the heavy-duty 2500, and the aux port was up here in the dash, which means you had to have cords hanging down. So I do like this upgrade of having all the ports right here in the console. Also, what is interesting is they don't have a floor-mounted console in this, the way that my manual Ram does, our diesel. But what that means is you still have 3 cup holders. They've redesigned this, because in mine it's just a big armrest. They've redesigned this to have the cup holders, yet you still have a big armrest with storage, which is a nice feature. And they've added, since our 06 model, 2 cup holders in the floor just ahead of the folding rear seat, which is also nice for your rear passengers. Because in my truck, which is paid off, so you can see why we have it and haven't traded up, it doesn't have any cup holders in the back, which means people can spill things. So that's kind of interesting. You'll also notice it's got a lot of storage in this vehicle. You've got a drawer here, which, I mean, this will take a lot. I mean, I have a big wallet and my phone, and everything will fit in this drawer, and it looks like it should be an ashtray, but it's not. You've got some little coin storage here, or whatever, knick-knack storage. You've got 2 power ports on either side of the dash here, plus the one here in the console. There are now air conditioning vents in the bottom of this seat configuration, which means that your rear passengers are getting air conditioning and heating, which is also nice. And you have this tray down here in front of the console where, as I said, my wallet is riding right now. And just to prove to you, that can go in there and that can shut. So there's a lot of storage. You know, this does lift up, so you can get 6 people in this truck. And with the crew cab, you can get 6 people in this truck a lot more comfortable than you could in the smaller quad that you can still buy, which will have the shorter back door. Really, I'm pretty impressed with this truck. It's got some nice features. The select shift is one that they've added with the 8-speed automatic transmission, so that 8-speed mates to the 305 horsepower V6. It has good power. It does need the traction control because the bed's so light, especially in the slick, so that is helpful. The traction control is definitely a nice option. And you have shift on the fly 4-wheel drive here under the select shift. Now, you know, there's some things about that select shift that we should talk about. So let's go over that next. So the select shift, this is an interesting thing. So you dial it over to park. You can go to reverse, neutral, and drive. You can hear it when it goes into park, and when you step on and off the brake, you can hear it locking and unlocking the ability to shift. It's all electronic. And if I were gazing into my crystal ball, what I would say is that because this has so much electronics in it, that is going to be a weak spot in these trucks in the future when they go off warranty, because anything driven by electronics, as we know, has more of a propensity to fail, and you're going to be using this every day. So I definitely think that, as opposed to a pole or a column shift, that this is ritzier. It's definitely technology forward. It's easy to reach and understand, but it also lends itself, I've found, to, because it's not what the consumer is used to yet, I find that I have trouble, you know, thinking about it. So sometimes I pull in and there's nothing to click up and down and whatever, and so I have to remember to dial over to park. And you'll see this same kind of setup. This is a very high-end kind of shift mechanism for this kind of lower-end truck, because like the Range Rovers have this kind of dial in the Evoque. You have this kind of dial in the Jaguars and the XFs and the XJs, I believe. So you'll see this start to happen more and more. It's a nice compact control. It doesn't take up a lot of room. It doesn't have to be integrated into the column. But I do find that there are some things that, like when you forget to shift it, they must know that people forget to shift to park, because I have done it where I turn off the car in the parking lot and it comes up with a little message in the display here, because it does have the display, the digital display, although not color, more like the Durango that we saw here at Real Auto Reports, a monochrome gauge, so it is an older style, and it comes up with this message that says, you know, autocorrect shift to park. So they have a whole feature in this truck that when you turn it off, it knows that you might be forgetting to shift it to park, and it shifts it to park for you. And it will not let you take the key out of the ignition until that is corrected. And if it auto corrects it to park, you have to turn the key back to pass to on and back to off, or it will not release the key. So at least they are making you aware that you're leaving the car not in park. And you know, I just think that the select shift is kind of interesting. The other interesting part about it, though, is that it does have a manual feature. So what you have here is a plus and minus up here above your cruise control settings on the wheel. And this is where you will change the gear up and down. So as you're driving, and so we're taking off from a light, if I hit the plus button, all of a sudden I will end up in, actually I had to hit the minus button, I will end up in second gear, now third, now fourth, and so on and so forth. The thing I notice about this auto shift is really where it's going to provide you the best benefit is when you're going down a hill, or you need to hold a gear for a reason. It's really not as good at holding or shifting when you tell it to if you're trying to use it in a performance aspect. It seems to override you more than it listens to you in a lot of respects. And with the 8-speed, there's a lot going on because it has to find a lot of gears. So we're going about 34 now. If I tromp on it, it's got to find the gear. Now I find that this 8-speed in this truck finds the gear at speed better than the Charger or some of the other 8-speeds I've driven from other manufacturers. So I do think the driving experience in this Ram is quite positive, especially being a lower model line than we're normally than we test. A lot of times the manufacturers bring us the biggest and the best and the loudest. It's the Hemi, or it's a Daytona package, or it's something that it is really a flagship of the model line. And we really like seeing this kind of everyday, more work truck, because it gives us a sense of the breadth of the line that Ram has. So speaking of the driving experience, I have driven this probably it's about a 120-mile round trip up to Fort Collins and back on the freeway. And what I'll tell you is that the V6 has good power. You can cruise at good speeds. We have speed limits of 75 miles an hour north of the city limits. So you can cruise at 75, 80, and you're good to go in this truck. However, because we are in the Rocky Mountains, we have mountains and, you know, big grades and downgrades, and so the terrain changes a lot, is what I'm saying. And what I notice is that with the 8-speed coupled to the V6 and the difference in the torque and horsepower that you'll have from the Hemi, it seems that you have to push on the accelerator a lot more when you're going up grades, because it's got to find the gear that is higher enough to get it up the hill. Because when it's cruising for fuel efficiency, because you're going to get 16 miles per gallon in town in this, and about 23 miles per gallon out on the freeway, which is excellent for a pickup, especially of this size with 4-door capability it has. And even if you don't have the longer box, that's a great thing for a 4x4. And it's really competing with the diesels of this size, you know, because diesels have always done well on the fuel mileage end of the equation. That said, you do have to kind of work with this motor and transmission setup to keep it at speed. If you have the cruise control on, you'll notice that it's downshifting more than you might expect in a vehicle that had a 4 or 5-speed automatic transmission in the past. So something to get used to. It's not really all that irritating. They've done a lot of sound deadening in this vehicle, and the shifts are smooth, and you know, they're quick, in that they don't lag and kind of make you feel like, holy crap, is this thing going to get going? But I do find, being used to driving the V8 trucks for years and diesel trucks for years, I do find that is something I've had to get used to in driving this V6 model. So we mentioned, some of the driving experience. The other thing is the suspension in this and the steering. I find the steering actually quite nice. It's on the lighter side for such a big vehicle, but it is exact, and it has a decent center feel. It is, as I said, it is light, and it is powered pretty heavily, so you don't spend a lot of effort spinning the wheel in this. So it's a big truck, and you using not as much effort as you might expect to turn the wheel and make it go full lock one way or the other, so all the way to one side or the other. And it holds corners well. It is a nice driving experience. It doesn't lean too much. It takes bumps well. This is definitely, because it's the 1500, is set up more for a ride comfort than for just towing capacity. So you can carry loads in this, but you can still drive it in town without losing your teeth. When you have like a 3500, a 1-ton dually, those are sprung to tow. And when you're driving downtown, especially the old ones, and I've owned one in the past, and I have a 2500 now, they ride a lot rougher, especially for your rear seat passengers. So this vehicle has actually got a lot more comfort involved in it, while still being able to carry quite a load. I think RAM has done a nice job with this vehicle. And as I said, even being a lower end model, it does have manual seats on both sides, but it's got full power windows, power mirrors, auto headlights, which is pretty nice. You've got the digital speedometer and the full trip computer with fuel economy. Now again, like the Durango and the Charger, you're going to find that you can only see one thing at a time, so you have to use these buttons to navigate between things. So it's best to not do that while you're driving around curves and stuff. But all in all, this is a well-equipped vehicle and is a great work truck, and would serve someone really well. And it doesn't take much to step up to one that has the rims and the chrome bumpers as a package. So all in all, really cool vehicle. And I mentioned all the storage up front. One of the other really cool storage features is in the back seat. On each side of the cab in this Crew, you have a box that's about this deep that you can open under the floor mats that will allow you to store stuff, besides being able to fold the back seat up and store stuff under the back seat in the well back there. So a lot of great stuff that Dodge has done. And well, again, Dodge, I can't get out of that habit, and I bet a lot of the consumers can't either. But this Ram is a great truck, and it's one of the entry levels to get into this vehicle. I still am a little shocked by the over $35,000 price tag, but I guess that's just what it costs to get a big, powerful, capable truck these days. For Real Auto Reports, I'm Jonathan McGrew. We'll have the wrap-up coming up next.
So that's the real video, the real review on the 2013 Ram. Remember, they don't call it a Dodge Ram anymore. So it's just the RAM Tradesman 1500 Crew 4x4. And you can put those in any order you want. The point is, it's a Ram 1500, and you have the bigger back seat, which is really useful if you have family or workmen or all sorts of people trying to get in your truck. So it's bigger than the Quad, which will be the shorter of the four doors. And that's the one that you used to see the most often about 6 years ago, 7 years ago. Now, the thing that's really cool about this Tradesman is that it is the value package. It is the bottom of the line, but it doesn't compromise on a lot of the features. It has the customer preferred package 22B on this truck here, which gives you a lot of cool things. You can see the spray and bed liner here. It also has the Sirius radio, and then a $500 option is the Torque Flight 8-speed rotary shift automatic transmission. Now that transmission is going to be very similar to the 8 speeds that you're seeing in other Dodge and Chrysler family vehicles. This mates it to the 305 V6 engine. That's the 3.6 liter, and that's another $500 option on this vehicle, which is kind of interesting. But you're going to have, well, you're going to have pretty good fuel economy at 19 miles per gallon combined, and that gives you about 23 out on the highway and 16 in city. Not bad for a good big truck. Now this has the 5-foot 7-inch box, but you can get the 6-foot 4-inch box. So a lot of flexibility. I prefer the chrome bumpers from the black plastic and the black painted, but you know, it depends on what your budget is. At right about $35,500 is tested. We think Dodge is doing a great job with their vehicles, and Ram as the brand separates it from Dodge. So Ram trucks are doing an amazing job giving you a lot of options, personality, and well, you can pick your size. You can go all the way up to the heavy duty and really tow some heavy loads, or still tow with this V6. For Real Auto Reports, I'm Jonathan McGrew. Come back for more videos, more first impressions, and we'll see you down the road.